I'm Karima Brown. It's Sunday night and it's time for The Fix.
I have decided to appoint Mr. Tito Mboweni as the Minister of Finance with immediate effect.
There's never a dull moment in South African politics. Instead of Nhlanhla Nene, it is our newly minted Finance Minister Tito Mboweni who will deliver the much-anticipated medium-term budget policy statement. My expert panel looks at whether he will pull a rabbit out of the hat to inspire confidence as we face down an economic recession and stagnant growth. Then we interview a man who has served both former presidents Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma and lays bare the emergence and the escalation of the conflict between these two flawed principles. Vusi Mavimbela captures the drama and struggle of the fallout for the democratic state in his new memoir. The Fix starts now.
This is The Fix, where every Sunday night, without fear or favor, we question the big hitters. We look ahead to tell you what matters, how it affects you, and why you should care. Tonight I'm flying solo. My sparring partner, Sunday Times and Business Day columnist Peter Bruce, is away this week. News just in. Transnet CEO Siyabonga Gama has been fired from state-owned entity Transnet, and Gama has been given 10 days until the October the 15th to show why his contract should not be terminated, following investigations that implicated him in misconduct and maladministration. While joining me to talk about the status of Mr. Gama is Transnet board member Mr. Edward Kieswetter. Mr. Kieswetter, good evening. Welcome to The Fix. We've just heard that the news has come in that Mr. Gama has in fact been fired. Can you inform the public and our viewers what made you go for this decision instead?
Good evening, Karima. Yes, so I can confirm that a letter was hand-delivered to Mr. Gama today to inform him of the board's intention to proceed with the termination. Just very quickly as background, in August, the board indicated through a letter of notice of intention that it wishes to suspend Mr. Gama to allow for the investigation, which had already been underway, to continue. Obviously, the investigation has been and continues to be underway, and the reason for suspension is to allow such investigation to take place. During the course of its ongoing deliberation and on the advice of the team doing an investigation and counsel, the board has considered that it is no longer in the interest of the company for Mr. Gama to remain in the employ. Mr. Gama, as the chief executive, is clearly the most senior executive in the organization, and in addition to the specific duties as a senior executive, also has the need for three things to be in place. Firstly, that he retains the trust and confidence of the board. Secondly, that his behavior is always compatible with the fiduciary nature of the role of Group Chief Executive, who is also a member of the board. And thirdly, that he displays the behavior that is consistent and in alignment with the values of integrity that the board wishes to
now,
uphold.
Mr. Kieswetter, it is clear that you have lost complete trust and faith in him. Mr. Gama has in the past threatened to take legal action. Is that what you expect?
Well, in fact, the board, during the week that has passed, following the board serving Mr. Gama a subsequent notice of termination and giving him 10 days to respond, subsequently extended that on 2 occasions up to the 15th of October. Instead of responding to make representation, Mr. Gama decided to make an application to the court to set aside the notice of intention. That was heard during the past week, and the court on Friday issued a finding that stays Mr. Gama's application, but does not set aside the board's notice of intention. So the board is entitled to act in terms of that notice based on the fact of the reasons I've given, and that for the process to be fair, the board had to give its reasons for loss of trust,
yes,
and for its position, and secondly, give a fair opportunity within the time allowed for the incumbent to make representation. In this particular instance, Mr. Gama chose not to make representation, and therefore the board proceeds with its next step to therefore apply its mind on the evidence before it and continue to implement the termination notice, which notice was implemented by way of a board resolution yesterday and delivered to Mr. Gama today.
All right, that's where we will leave it. Thank you very much. That is Mr. Kieswetter. He's, of course, a board member at Transnet, confirming that Mr. Gama has indeed been axed. His contract has been terminated. He has been given the letter today informing him of the board's decision.